I'm going to level with you guys. I don't actually have a lot to say about this episode. Because this feels like one very good episode, pretty much mashed together with one pretty bad episode. On the bad episode spectrum, we have the threat of the week. And I really hate constantly bringing that up, but it just kind of keeps happening. I don't mean to constantly berate that. Lord knows there is a reason to have a threat of the week, and sometimes the threat of the week can be nice. I mean, let's not forget that the Borg were once a threat of the week, just to name one example of that. And there have been good threat of the weeks that didn't even recur. The problem here is that this threat of the week is almost nonsensical, poorly executed, and ends without any resolution. It's just, they get the shield up, the end. And it's just, we all have to assume that that's the automatic win condition, like this was a video game, and it's just, from now on, they lack the ability to do anything against them, right? What? And then we have antagonistic Neelix lady. I'd actually look up her name, and I hope I wrote it down. Dexa, that's her frickin' name. I didn't like her at all, by the way, but there's a Dexa who's like unnecessarily antagonistic, and the aliens who are actually pretty tolerant and nice about things, but then, of course, they're the bad guys, so the episode tries to slant them in a negative light. And there's this whole thing, they don't even discuss the backstory. That's one of the things that I don't like about this, the threat of the week plot of this episode, is that if I knew the backstory of how this situation came to be, I could actually give some kind of judgment or opinion on it. As is, all I can say is, frickin' move. Voyager is here to help you. You can get your stuff and move to a place that isn't a goddamn asteroid. Someplace with air and plants and animals, for God's sakes. We found an M-class planet. We could do this, you know? I mean, don't mistake me. I get the whole forced relocation angle they were trying and failed to go with. Like, that's what they were trying to do, the forced relocation. They were trying to do a very crude, blunt, you know, I actually can't think what it's called. Listen, when the United States government, and let's make this clear, this was bad, said, oh, well, we're going to take this land from you. Oh, we're going to take this land. Well, we're going to take this land from you. But they pull off that analogy so crudely that it honestly wasn't until I started reading some of the behind-the-scenes stuff that I was like, oh, that's what they were going for. Because it's just, they've been fleeing an absolutely insane distance, by the way. Let's ignore actual logic of the fact that these Talaxians, who, by the way, are current generation, having seen Talax, you know, which means they had to have at least been born there, and they have managed to go all this frickin' way out here. Let's ignore the logic problems with that and just move on. Remember, Voyager's had multiple help getting this far this quickly, and that's 7 frickin' years, but I digress. So ignoring the logic problem of that, they start off by saying we were pushed off our land because of, you know, the whole forced relocation thing, and then insert whatever, just insert the blanks, and then we're here, and now we're being forced off our land again because of these miners. There's not enough information there to really make this an analogy, or for me to give a real judgment call, but to be blunt, the pragmatist in me looks at that and says, frickin' move! Again, we found an M-class planet. You want to go settle it? Go freaking settle it. I don't get it. And by the way, while I've never been under the concept of forced relocation, and I don't really have a concept like home, I've often said that home is where I happen to be at the time, I do understand what it's like to be told you can't live here anymore. That's happened to me more than once in my life. And yeah, it does suck. Let's make that clear. I can understand even the smidgen of what I have an understanding of this greater problem sucked. So I can understand, intellectually speaking, that this is much worse. But still, people have shown up who want to help you, who are reaching out to you, and will take care of you for as long as they need to get you to someplace where you can actually settle, instead of asteroids. Asteroids in a mining settlement that happens to be claimed by some people. And again, we don't know the backstory, so I can't. Anyways. But that's the A plot. And you know what? I don't actually have much else to say about that A plot. There's the threat of the week. It's resolved instantly. Dexa has, like, no chemistry at all with Neelix, and this is made so apparent with Ethan Phillips, the actress they got for her. Just no chemistry. She is a textbook example of a romance of the week. The only difference is that this romance keeps going off camera. You know, he will apparently end up continuing to be with her in the future, and I have to say apparently because I don't frickin' know. I mean, his story isn't really continued until STO comes out, for God's sakes. But in every way that she is approached, she's just, you know, romance of the week. And it feels that way because it doesn't add anything to her character. It doesn't add anything to his character, and it's not even part of why he decides to help them. Every time he mentions his desire to help them, he's trying to help what he perceives as a bullied people defend themselves against people who are pushing them around. It has nothing to do with her. So even the tiniest thread of relevance to the romance is gone. Now, I do know from behind-the-scenes stuff, Ethan Phillips apparently was kind of pushing for a new romance thing, so that might have been why they just tacked on the romance, and why it feels tacked on. But to really make my point clear, there is zero chemistry between Ethan Phillips and whoever plays Dexa. I had to look up her name again. Very shortly after the supposedly quiet romantic dinner scene, we cut almost immediately to a scene between Neelix and Tuvok, where they have great chemistry together. And it's one of those things that I have loved whenever they've pulled it off correctly. About half the time, Voyager has approached the Neelix and Tuvok's friendship correctly. And that half the time, I cheer for it, because it's awesome. I legitimately love when Neelix and Tuvok are written together properly. Doesn't happen that often, but it's great when it does. And this episode is an excellent example of that. That's probably one of my favorite scenes of this episode, is that brilliant scene where the two of them are just talking, because it actually dodges most of the obvious tropes. Tuvok is not there to say, well, you know, hint, hint, you should totally go back to the asteroid. That would be the expected thing to do. He doesn't go in there and do the other expected thing, which is the exact opposite. Hint, hint, you would be in super trouble and you'd be kicked out of Starfleet forever if you did this. No, what Tuvok walks in and treats him like like a sentient, sapient being, and treats him with respect. And that's really important. That Neelix has genuinely earned Tuvok's respect. Tuvok flat out says that. You have learned and grown on your time on this ship. You have done tremendous things. You have been invaluable in so many different locations. You have earned the skill set to be a leader if you choose to be. And then, and this is brilliant, Neelix says, you think I should help them? And Tuvok says, let me be clear. I am not encouraging you. I am telling you what is available to you. And I love that because it drills the point home that it's about choice. He's not trying to sway Neelix. He's trying to make Neelix aware so that Neelix can make an informed choice. Because by God, if there's one thing that is Vulcan, it is the very concept of an informed decision. I know that sounds like a weird thing, but seriously, think about that for a moment. Philosophically speaking, you could summarize like if you had to take one thing away from Vulcan culture and philosophy, it would be informed decisions. I want all the information available. I want to look at it, analyze it, and make a decision based on it. That is Vulcan philosophy right to a T. And Tuvok accurately looks at Neelix and says he doesn't realize this. Makes a point to go out of his way and help him to understand the information, the knowledge, the circumstances surrounding it, so that Neelix can make an informed decision. And I love that. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of bouncing around. I've got a couple of notes about the A-plot here. Oh my God, they found Talaxians. Dun, dun, dun. First contact date, by the way, I like that. It's the kind of thing that should be a holiday in Star Trek. In fact, to be blunt, I'm a little surprised hasn't ever been a first contact day before this. I know we only did the movie recently, but if you think about it, the Vulcan moment, the first contact between Vulcans and humans, should be one of the most celebrated, if not the most celebrated event in Federation history. It is the very first domino that kicks off frickin' everything. I mean, we have holidays in real life here for way less reason than that, you know? So, I liked that concept. I liked how they presented it. I wrote a aggravated note here. Didn't we just do this plot twice, actually? suspicious aliens take us in, and oh, we got to earn their trust. I like, it's funny because the episode then flings that out the window in the very next scene. It's like, oh, yeah, you're free to go. They're not actually hostile. Sorry about that. Our bad. What? Why did you... What? Okay. And then the miners offer to help find their people and present themselves as relatively reasonable people, except when they're dealing with the Talaxians, which is just kind of weird, but whatever. It is also worth noting that the miners are not, and again, this goes back to them not really understanding how to do this. The miners are not presented as overtly greedy. It would be too easy to make them typical, indeed, stereotypical villains. Oh, you got 2 hours to get off there, or we're going to... I don't know why I'm doing that accent. I'm sorry. You have 2 hours to get off this, or we will destroy you. Baby blood. You know, it would be too easy to do that, but instead they're actually quite reasonable, offer to help, are freely open to negotiations multiple times, despite being physically attacked by the Talaxians, and they are still willing to go with it. And you know what convinces them? This is the lives of 500 people you're talking about. And so understanding that we're talking about people... Okay, we'll push it back even further. We'll give you more time. Fine. They're surprisingly reasonable, despite being basically the bad guys. I mentioned here, I've got to know, I don't like Dexa. One thing I like, though, if I may, as I said, there's no chemistry there, but I would have liked it better if she had been basically played like Cass. My reason for saying that is it would have been a nice bookend to Neelix's character arc. If it had, damn it, Kefka, if it had served some kind of aspect of Neelix's character arc. When we first met Neelix, all the way back in Season 1, he was a worthless, lying, scummy bastard. And I'm sorry, but that's true. He himself admits, this isn't just me interpreting this. This isn't just Sci-Fi Debris making fun or riffing. He was a lying, cheating scumbag. And during the course of his time with the show, he grew and learned, became better, and he has admitted many times how his time on this show and his time with this crew has made him a better person. Cass fell in love with, aka was infatuated with, Neelix, because from her immensely lack of any knowledge or experience, some guy from space... That's it. Only qualification. Some guy from space was like some amazing thing to her. And it's not like he didn't care about her. But now, 7 years later, he is talented. He is good at what he does. He is skilled and knowledgeable and learned. He is that kind of character who could actually sweep a woman off her feet, because he's actually got all those qualities that he pretended to back then. And thus, if Dexa had been portrayed more like Kess, at least that would have served part of his character arc, showing through action how much he has changed over the years. And then hammer the point in with the scene right after it with Tuvok and Neelix. And Tuvok saying, you have grown, you have learned this, you have become this, you have these tools at your disposal. There's a brilliant bit right after that where... Oh yeah, I'm sorry, real quick. She also compliments his cooking. Oh my god! I think that's the first time the show has ever said Neelix is a good cook. Holy crap, guys. I actually wrote down, "You're a good cook," which is the direct quote, and then put, a little emote there. Anyways, there's a scene right after that, which I really love, because Janeway confronts him. She's not stupid. And so she says, yeah, okay. And, are you going to go be aggressive? And his response is, I promise you Voyager will have no part of this. Because he cares about his crew and he cares about his family. And Janeway says, that's not what I asked you. What are you prepared to do? And his response, I love this, is, are you ordering... No, hang on. I'm sorry. I'm actually skipping ahead. Excuse me. Because they even build this up properly. The escalation of this scene is great between Neelix and Janeway. He says, I'm not... The Prime Directive doesn't restrict me. I'm not part of the crew. And she says, no. No, you are absolutely a member of my crew. And she doesn't say that in that sort of, you must follow my rules. She says that in the, you're part of the family. Remember, that's one of the biggest themes Season 7 hits overall. Family. Neelix, you are part of this family, whether you like it or not. And then Neelix's response is, are you ordering me not to go? And I love it because it means he would agree to it. If she said don't go, he wouldn't. I love that respect. I love that honesty. And then her response is, rather than being a dictatorial Janeway like she tends to be when she's badly written, she says, what do you exactly going to do? And his response is, that's up to the Talaxians. Once again, hitting that point that Tuvok hammered in earlier. This isn't really about right or wrong. This isn't really about morality or ethics. It's about choice. It's about what we choose to do. And I like that. Also, there's a scene where he and Dex kiss, and then the music goes dun dun dun, and it cuts to black. Why is a kiss a dun dun dun? That's just weird. Before I get, I mean, and then the threat ends, and there's no real resolution. But what's funny is I remember this episode badly, but it's because I remember the first half of the episode, which is all about the stupid A plot of the threat of the week, which again is resolved. It's just, all right, we got the shields up, threat over. The miners just go home. The video game boss has been defeated, and they lived happily ever after. You know, it's never even brought up again, ever. So, not counting STO. So, what I find interesting is both of the previous episodes leading up to this have been very heavy Prime Directive episodes. One for, one against, but in both cases they have been episodes where the Prime Directive very clearly applies. And it hasn't been brought up once in those episodes. And yet in this episode, where the Prime Directive basically doesn't apply at all, it's suddenly brought up multiple times. And each time it's basically brought up to be instantly dismissed. Oh, we should do this. No! Prime Directive. No! And they just throw it out the window. Now, you're probably looking at me weird, so I just want to explain this really quick. The reason I say the Prime Directive doesn't apply here is because of my interpretation of how the Prime Directive applies, which has more to do with the original series than TNG or anything else, really. And what I mean by that, if the Enterprise, flying along, they get a distress call, and people are like, hey, please help. We have settled here, and they're trying to push us off this area, and the Enterprise helps them, that's not violating the Prime Directive. That is definitely interfering with an alien culture. 2 alien cultures, actually. But not less advanced cultures, and not for the purpose of changing or altering their development in any way, or even hindering their development. It's just someone asked for help, and they're responding to it. By the way, funny fact, they even call that out in this episode when the Delta Flyer goes in to assist Neelix. We are here answering a distress call. There's no need for finagling around this, you know? Anyways, let's talk about the final scene. I know, I told you, this is going to be a short episode. It's a shame, because, like I said, half of it is really, really good. This was several lasts for Star Trek, believe it or not. This was the last episode LeVar Burton directed. Hang on, let me verify that 100%. I meant to do that before I started this. LeVar Burton. I just have the wiki up here, Memory Alpha, because I was looking at LeVar Burton's stuff, and I was like, wait a minute. Yep, nope, I'm right. This is the last Voyager episode that LeVar Burton directed. Great director, by the way. I have a lot of respect for Burton as a director. This is the last anything. This is the last time Naomi Wildman was on screen. She's actually been absent for a while now. There's a couple of other people who were kind of sidling out already because the series was winding down. And in almost every way, this episode feels like the penultimate episode, the one right before the finale, the one leading up to the finale. One of the crew members has permanently left the crew. And that's actually kind of a big deal. And you know what? God damn, it actually got me emotional. Now, I hate to bring up Sci-Fi Debris again, but the man just bashes Neelix nonstop, left and right. And yeah, okay, fine, that's his shtick. He's here to be funny. I get it. After about season 3 or 4 or so, I started to really like Neelix as a character. And for basically the entire rest of the show, I really liked Neelix as a character. Ethan Phillips is talented, and they did some good things with him here and there. I actually got emotional seeing him say goodbye. they actually got out a lot of the crew, the grips and the animators and the set designers, all the people who were involved in making the show, threw them in a costume and had them all line up there to be the people that said goodbye to Neelix and thus to Ethan Phillip. A really nice send-off, in my opinion. And that was awesome. The only I saw a quote that this is not 100% confirmed. It was in one of my magazines, but Burton mentioned he would have been there too, except everyone would recognize Geordi, and that would kind of cause issues. But they were all there saying goodbye to him because he was leaving Star Trek. Now the funny thing is he actually has a brief scene in Endgame, but let's ignore that for the moment. It's a good scene. It's powerful. It's well directed. It's well presented. The music actually works for once. They all don't say anything, with very few exceptions, because words aren't necessary. And then Tuvok showing that respect, that mutual respect that Vulcans so value in their friendships, just does the little dance. It's very minor. It's not overt. It's not out of character. He just does it so that Neelix can have his dream fulfilled now that it never will be henceforth, as a sign of respect. And I really loved that. That was awesome. That was awesome. And then for some reason we've got another episode next week that is an Endgame. I really don't understand why they did this, because Renaissance Man has like nothing to do with the end of the series. This episode feels like, alright, we're winding the series down. Renaissance Man feels like you could have slotted this in anywhere, but whatever. We'll get to that next week, because we're closing in on the end too. And I gotta be honest, I'm getting kind of emotional about this. I really want to know how many of you have been following me. Please feel free to put... I read every single comment that comes in through my show. I may not respond to all of them, but I read every single one of them. I actually have to, but we'll not get into that. I get email notifications. I see them on my YouTube comment section. Please comment if you've been with me on this weird journey for the last 4.5 years through this show. I would love to hear from you. I'll see you next time, guys. Live long and prosper.